I'm Alicia de los Reyes, and I am making another video to tell you about my new planner. So this is the Writer's Process Planner, and it's the third edition, 2021. I've made it for 2 years. This is my third year. And this year it's going to be a printable. So I put it in my blue binder, and I think it came out awesome. I was nervous while I was printing it out because my printer screwed something up, but I think it looks really good. So I'm really excited to show it with you, to share it with you. So there's two editions this year. This is the Witchy Graphics edition with illustrations by Anna Sokol. And it's got like snakes, freaky, occultish looking things. And then there's also like stars and constellations and a whale. So, I thought I would tell you about how this year's planner is different from last year's planner. So the things, real quick, the things that are the same, I have a few of the same pages, like the quarterly goals planning page. And there's a few trackers that are the same, like this work in progress tracker, but now it has a sweet eyeball on it. There's a revision and editing tracker, sales tracker, charts to track your writing days, and it's all bullet journal style, which is the same as last year. Here's a mood tracker and kind words folks have said about me. And then I added some more fun pages that are like just for keeping track of stuff. So here, this one is books we read. These are quotes from books, movies, music, etc. I have favorite words and just a page for ideas. So then the other things that are the same, I kept the weekly logs all the same. So except for, of course, the dates are this 2021 dates. So there's a box for your goals for the week, the week dates, and then each day I rewrote the date too. Down here I have tasks. You can also use this spot for notes, like things you have to get done sometime during the week. Or you can use it like for daily tasks that you have to do every day. So like if you have to, like I have to cook dinner most days, so I would write cook dinner down here and then maybe check off or write down what I'm going to cook for dinner down here because sometimes I forget. Okay, so those are the same. The weekly planners, the trackers, the calendar pages are the same. There's a monthly calendar page every month along with a notes page. Here's one of my favorite graphics. It's freaky mushrooms. And there's a calendar page. So there's a notes page after every calendar, sprinkled in with all the weekly planners. So as you're going through the year, the idea is you have your weekly and daily to-dos, and you can write those down. You can then take a breath at the end of the month, the beginning of the next month, and write down notes for what you want to do or reflect on what you have done, and then plan out your next month. So you can put like important monthly things that are happening in the month on your monthly calendar, just like regular calendar. But I wanted to share, so here is what is different. So each year I've written an introduction, and of course I wrote one this year. And last year's was about mindset and your mindset towards your writing and how you feel about it and how you treat it, whether you treat it as like a job or, or a career or more of like a passion or a calling or a vocation, or a hobby. So this year, because we are in a pandemic and everything is really hard to plan, I wrote this about what has helped me. So this is just my welcome letter with a cool girl with constellation hair. And then how to use this planner, basically what I've told you. but with some tweaks for 2021 because I have not found regular goal setting to be possible. And in my life right now, I've also not really found like making the most of your time advice to be helpful either or possible for me. So, basically, I wrote the introduction that I wanted to read in other places. And it's not a pep talk about getting more done, but I hope that it is an uplifting and invigorating introduction to help you feel good about what you are doing already. So I called it Reflection and Emergency because I was reflecting on all the emergencies that happened this year, and it just feels like this whole year is an emergency, and it's kind of an all hands on deck situation often, so, or maybe all the time. Okay, so basically, I said, it's time for something new. Here's what I did. And what I did was I shifted my values and I drew on the experiences that have been difficult for me before and the things that allowed me to embrace positivity in other difficult times in my life before. And I found that the experiences that were most helpful, the things that I remembered from them, those experiences were when I had my infant son at home and I was like totally overwhelmed. My first child did not like to sleep at night. In the hospital, the nurse said maybe he just doesn't like the crib. And I thought, well, we are in trouble. So I found myself early on in the pandemic remembering things that like my mom had told me during that time that I started to do, things that I found were helpful and that I started to do that my friends helped me figure out. And I realized that those things were actually helping me during the pandemic because in some ways it was similar for me because I do have kids. I am at home with the kids. And now during the pandemic, I am literally at home with the kids all the time. And I know everybody's at home all the time. And a lot of us have, this whole new like stressor to deal with. And I just found the two situations made me feel kind of the same way. Like I was isolated, but I was also responsible for like another person's life. It was a new and heavy responsibility. But there was also lots of fun and relaxing things about it too. The pace of like a baby at home life can sometimes it's really slow. And I feel like our pace of life right now, it's pretty slow too. So that was where I came from when I was writing this introduction. And what I did was I wrote out the values that I kind of gained or like centered my life on during that experience and how I used them during this experience. So, to give you an example, because this is very nebulous, um, one thing that the pandemic has required me to be, which parenting has also required me to be, is flexible. Um, if you're the parent of a small child or if you take care of anybody who is unpredictable in any way, you know that you have to change your plans a lot. And sometimes they're like really important plans that you can't really change. And sometimes you have to really move around your life to just get essential things done. Like I've had to leave the grocery store because my child was screaming and I just couldn't get groceries. Like I just had to do it a different way at a different time. It was annoying, but I figured it out. And so I feel like this pandemic, I mean, I know during this pandemic, we've had to figure out a lot of different ways to do things, and flexibility is important. And I think that this is a good example of how, like, the old kind of goal setting didn't work for me this year because I think a lot of advice that I've gotten is kind of to just stick to it. So you pick a goal and you stick to it. But that's not always possible, and it's not always good or necessary. I think it's okay to give up on goals. Like if you're if your 3-year-old is screaming in the grocery store, like it's okay to leave the grocery store. If you're working on something and it's making you miserable and you don't want to work on it anymore, I think it's okay to let it go. If you have a project like I have and it's been shopped around, it didn't sell, and you're no longer enthusiastic about it, shelve it. Doesn't matter. Like, yeah. So flexibility is a good thing, I think. And that's just an example of one of the values that I have kind of taken from another part of my life and put into my entire life during this pandemic, but also into my writing life. So the other ones I wrote about are resilience and ability to change. So, kind of to bounce back. We've had to do a lot of bouncing back this year, some of us much more than others. And ability to change, I think, is for me speaking to kind of how it's okay to realize that the things you did before aren't working anymore, but also that they're maybe not the best way to do things. Like, I think a lot of the protests and work that Black Lives Matter has been doing has helped me uh, realize it's okay to let things I've done wrong go and move forward and be a different person. So, um, and that's something that you can take and I can take into different parts of my life. So, I wrote about that, and it is a different kind of introduction from what I've written before. It's not as concrete, but I gave you exercises. That's what all this blank space is for. Questions to prompt you to think about what experiences you've had. I think even the experience of just living through this year is something that will all draw on in the future. But I think you can use that as an example of something that you've already gone through that you can learn stuff from. And then I also changed the goal setting. So I tweaked, like I mentioned earlier, I tweaked the goal setting part of this. So for the goals, instead of like, what do you want to accomplish this year? I wrote, what do you care most about this year? Because we don't all have the same capacity we did for all kinds of reasons, and that's fine. I think we can still set priorities for ourselves and try and make those into, even if it's pared down, we can still feel accomplishment in those things. I also added a letting go list. So, like I mentioned, letting manuscripts go, letting projects go. I usually feel good about letting things go. I feel like free, like I can try new things, and I love that feeling. But I do sometimes feel like I should memorialize the things I've done in some way, just so I can like have it written down somewhere. Here's what I've done. So that's, sometimes you feel like, oh, I've worked so hard and I've only gotten this far. And if you have a list somewhere of all the things you've done, of all the things you've tried, then it can make you feel better. This is something I've like journaled about. Here's all the things I've done, this week. And so the letting go list, my idea is, I'm going to write down like all the manuscripts I have written, all the ones that I have shopped around, all the short stories that I've written, everything that I've written that hasn't actually made it out into the world, so that I can like have it here and keep it that way. And then the last thing I'll say is that I suggest in this planner this year using these weekly things a little bit differently from the way I've used them before. So, like I said in the beginning, you can use it to plan out your week, things you have to do, appointments, place you have to be. But I also started using it, and I did this already with my planner this year, started using it to write down things that I've already done. So this was something that I learned when my kids were little. One day I was, feeling like every day is the same and I was getting nothing done because with my baby at home, I was getting almost nothing done. And my mom said, when you guys were little, what I did was I just wrote down the things that I had done that day, even if it was like wash the dishes. And I was like, well, I washed the dishes. I didn't know that counted. So I started writing that down, writing things like that down. Any little thing I did, got the mail, washed the dishes, like took a shower. Sometimes it's really hard to do with a small child at home. And I've started doing that again in the pandemic, and it's made me feel so much better. One thing I started doing, which I plan to write this up more or maybe do another video on it, is adding in like writing down anytime I do something for self-care, and I put little curly brackets around it so it looks a little different, like a little fancy. And like if I meditate, I will write that down. And it really has made me feel better when I look back on a Friday or Saturday and think like, gee, what did I really even do this week? And I see all those little curly brackets, or maybe just one or two, and I think, well, I took care of myself. That's pretty big. Because I think that is sometimes like a pressure that we feel to do self-care, and like you sometimes do it without thinking about it, even something small, and then um so like write it down so we remember. So that is the Writer's Process Planner for 2021. One last look. That's the one with the graphics. The one without the graphics looks exactly the same, only there are no graphics. But I would love to hear what you do to plan your week, if you do that anymore, how you've changed your planning, how you've changed your goal setting. Yeah, so let me know in the comments. You can also always send me an email and visit me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm at Likes Oatmeal, LIKESOATMEAL. And my email is alicia@aliciadelosreyes.com. I will link to it. Thanks so much for watching, and yeah, take care.